Hi, and welcome back to the Examine Life. In this episode, I wanted to give something very basic, which is defining what narcissism is. So if you're new to the topic of narcissism, and I'm going to start with a clinical definition, or at least something that's pretty close to a clinical definition, to give you some idea of what type of symptoms narcissism has. Now, I want to make it clear that the word narcissism has actually been overused and sometimes misused in our society. But at the same time, it doesn't mean a person isn't abusive. Okay, what really is at the core of what makes kind of what a narcissist is their lack of empathy for other people. And, at the end of the day, it's all about them. But I want to give you a definition of what narcissism is and what its symptoms are. So we're going to look at the Mayo Clinic's definition of the narcissistic personality disorder. Now, the people that I am going to be talking about on this video on this channel are people who had excessive amounts of these symptoms, okay? To where if I was able to diagnose them as being narcissistic, I probably would have. And, this is years later now, but I seriously doubt that they've changed at all, because narcissists usually don't change. And they don't admit what they are. And I can go into, I'm going to tell you some awesome stories as we go along, and give you of some of these examples of the symptoms that are here, and go more into the tactics, I guess you could say, that narcissists use. So let's go into this. The Mayo Clinic definition, and this is probably taken partly from something called the DSM-5, which is, I guess, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Health. So the overview of what narcissistic personality disorder is it's one of several personality disorders. And other personality disorders include like antisocial or borderline, schizoid. There's a couple others. I don't remember them on. Histrionic, I think, is another one. But the narcissistic personality disorder is something that it seems to be a lot more prevalent than I thought it used to be. When I was in college, they would say, well, the narcissistic personality disorder is really rare, they used to say. No, it's not. It's not rare at all. It's quite common, actually. And at least the effects of the narcissistic personality person, their effects can go down generations. The way that they behave is a way that they teach their children how to behave. And it's not their children may not necessarily be narcissistic, but they don't know how they lack a good role model when you have a narcissistic parent, So, as it says here, it's a personality disorder. It's one of them, anyways, of the group called Cluster Bs. And it has the people who have this disorder, they have an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration. They have troubled relationships and a lack of empathy for others. Okay, but behind this mask of extreme confidence lies a fragile self-esteem that's vulnerable to the slightest criticism. And that's where, basically they become abusive, and so they can dish it out, but they can't take it. A narcissist personality disorder causes problems in many areas of life, such as relationships, work, school, or financial affairs. People with narcissistic personality disorder may be generally unhappy and disappointed when they're not given the special favors of admiration they believe they deserve. They may find their relationships unfulfilling, and others may not enjoy being around them. Hey, you guys are abusive. Go figure. Now, this is what I really find so typical of the psychology or psychiatric field. It says treatment for narcissistic personality disorder centers around talk therapy. Well, majority of narcissists don't talk. They don't accept that they need to go into therapy. So this is a tricky one, in that the ones that are actually in therapy are usually misdiagnosed. They're misdiagnosed, and I have a friend who definitely 100%, I would have to say that she has so many of these symptoms that the doctor, she was diagnosed as a bipolar, but really she's a narcissist. And I personally think that when somebody is isolated a lot, they can become very narcissistic, and they're just through the fact that they isolate themselves, or they're withdrawn. She's a withdrawn type of narcissist, or covert narcissist, I guess they call them. But when they're isolated, they tend to decompensate, and their narcissistic traits do come out a lot more, and they become more defined. But she definitely had a lot of them, and I'm going to be talking about those also. Okay, the symptoms. Signs and symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, and the severity of symptoms vary. Okay, that really just means that it's really on a spectrum, meaning that you have narcissists who are incredibly narcissistic, and then you have those that are sort of like on the fringes of it. And some people say that the people who are like, they have narcissistic traits but they're not full-blown narcissists, that they can be reformed. And I think so. It could possibly be either that, or they might actually be borderlines. People who are borderlines, they can be reformed. It's a lot more easier for them than for narcissists, and I'll actually go into that later on. But a lot of the people who are on here on YouTube right now talking about, well, the answer is to go no contact. Well, I'll go into that on another video too, but I have to agree with one person out there who would say that a abusive person is an abusive person, regardless of whether they're by a borderline or a narcissist or schizoid or histrionic or whatever. Abusive person is still an abusive person. So it doesn't matter what their diagnosis is. But anyway, so this is the symptoms, and I will be going into detail on each one. They have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. They have a sense of entitlement and require constant and excessive admiration. They expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements that warrant it. They exaggerate achievements and talents. Be preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. They believe they are superior and can only associate with equally special people. They monopolize conversations and belittle or look down on people they perceive as inferior. They expect special favors and unquestioning compliance with their expectations. They take advantage of others to get what they want. They have an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. They're envious of others and believe others envy them. They behave in an arrogant or haughty manner, coming across as conceited, boastful, and pretentious. And they insist on having the best of everything. For instance, the best car or office. And that's actually, that one is not quite true. I haven't really come across people who are that overt, I guess maybe for an overt narcissist that is, but I haven't come across a lot of narcissists that require this. Now the thing is that they don't, and to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, you don't necessarily have to have all of these symptoms, okay? So, and it says, at the same time that people with narcissistic personality disorder have trouble handling anything they perceive as criticism. And they can become impatient or angry if they don't receive the special treatment that they deserve, if they think they deserve. They have significant interpersonal problems and easily feel slighted. They react with rage or contempt and try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior. They have difficulty regulating emotions and behavior. They experience major problems dealing with stress and adapting to change. They feel depressed and moody because they fall short of perfection. They have secret feelings of insecurity, shame, vulnerability, and humiliation. Okay, so that's just the symptoms right now, and that's the definition of what narcissistic personality disorder is from a clinical standpoint. And a lot of this comes from something called the DSM-5, which clinicians, they use that for diagnosing people. The cause of narcissism is something that's still that's something that I'll talk about possibly later on, but right now I just wanted to give you a background about what the clinical definition of narcissism is. In our society, we've gotten to the point where we use the word narcissism a little bit too much to describe just a bad behavior, and sometimes people act badly. It happens, but it doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist. Okay, narcissism is pathological and it's chronic, meaning that these traits are totally built into this person, to where they look down on people, they're conceited, they are abusive if they don't get what they want. Everything has to be according to their terms. When they talk, when you get engaged in a conversation with a narcissist, it's some serious mental acrobatics, because it's very convoluted and twisted. And I've come across some narcissists who can come up with some doozies when it comes to having an argument, to where they can twist things around. And they're people that I never thought of as, that because of the professions that they were in, that they would be narcissist. I didn't even think about that. And I'm thinking now, looking back on some of the people that I've dealt with, that a lot of them probably were narcissists, and they were in the helping fields. So this, as I said on my first episode, I will be talking about how I will have a lot of videos or examples of how there are people in the helping fields who have narcissistic characteristics, and how sometimes it's actually built into their establishment, and how their establishment enables them and keeps them in there, so that they're just one part of a bigger narcissistic organization. Alright, so I'll talk to you again on another video. Thanks a lot, and please subscribe if you would like to hear more.